Follow your dreams. Don't give up. And I think that really happiness is a choice, and waking up happy every day is number one. And if you can do that, then you've already made it. And if you keep working towards your goals, then it's just going to get better and better.
Welcome, everybody, to the JeffMara podcast. Tonight, we have a really interesting guest, and her name is Jaimie Beebe. She is a film and TV casting director with a wide variety of credits, including River Runs Red, Falsely Accused, and the highly anticipated series Paradise City. She's worked with major brands, celebrities, and directors such as Dannon, Oikos, Childhelp, Betty White, Shaq, John Stamos, Billie Jane, and more. She has cast several music videos for bands like Buckcherry and Breaking 27, as well as many voiceover spots for radio. And besides all this, she has a true crime podcast called Strictly Stalking. So Jaimie, thank you so much for joining me. And how did you get into being a casting director?
Well, thank you for having me. I kind of fell into it. I was working in production, had a production for a small boutique company, and that was just one of my many job titles when I was there. And so when I left there, I knew that I really wanted to do casting because it was just kind of the best part of the job.
Mm-hmm. So how does one train to become a casting director? I'm obviously going to be a judge of talent. So is that just something that's innately within you, or how does that happen?
I think it's different for different people. I never really worked under anybody. A lot of people start out, as assistants or whatever, working for other companies or working for bigger companies. And since I already knew a lot of agents and managers from the other production jobs that I had, I kind of just jumped right in and decided to do everything on my own. So I guess for me, it was a kind of just a learning process on my own rather than like learning through somebody else. But it's definitely a lot of trial and error. I think that as far as choosing an actor, it's there's so much that goes into it. Like, it's not just based on talent. It's not just based on look. There's a million things that have to go exactly right for that actor to be like the chosen actor for something. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it's like a talent, but I think I'm pretty good at it.
Well, I think that's great. So I guess what you're saying is that you didn't work for anybody or an actual casting agency. You just went out and started your own business and said, "Hey, I'm Jaimie Beebe's casting agency." And
pretty much, yeah. And that's a really hard way to do it because nobody wants to hire somebody that doesn't, that's new. So when I first started out many years ago, I would go to the universities and the film schools, and I would ask them if they needed a casting director because, that way we were kind of both learning at the same time. And even though I wasn't going to school, I learned a lot from them. And then as they graduated, they kept hiring me. So that was kind of how I progressed through that. And I did work in reality for a little while. I still do some reality shows here and there. It's fun, but mostly scripted at this point.
That's really interesting. You said that you started in production. Do you have like a degree in theater, or do you have acting, previous acting experience?
No, none. It was never really a plan of mine to get into the entertainment industry in that way. I have a bachelor's degree in photography and a master's degree in music management. So I actually came out to LA to manage bands, and I learned really quick that I didn't want to do that. I love bands, I love music, but like managing bands just like isn't really the thing for me. And then I did like real estate for a while. I just kind of tried everything. And then I somehow fell into production. I knew somebody and they were like, "Hey, I'm going to be a director. I want to start this company. You can manage the whole company." And I was like, "Cool. Like, I've never been on set, so let me figure out how." And Google is my friend, and I learned, a lot in a really short amount of time. And then, part of that was because it was such a small company. I was doing so many different jobs, and, being head of production, I was telling people no a lot, and I was, telling people they couldn't get what they wanted, or, changing things. And so the best part was casting, because I would it was great. I was like, hey, you got the job. Like it was a lot more fun. It was a lot more like my personality, I think. So after that ended, I just stuck with it.
Oh, that's great. So when you get your jobs, do you have to solicit directors, or are you established at this point where people will call you and say, "Hey, we're doing a movie. Can you cast for us?"
Yeah, I mean, I work with a lot of the same producers and directors and companies over and over again, which I think, says a lot. I think that's great that people want to continue working with me over and over. So I don't go out and solicit jobs a lot. Once in a while, sure, but a lot of it's word of mouth, or somebody needs a casting director, and there's somebody else I've worked for in the team, and they'll be like, oh, I know one, and they'll give me a call. So it's good. It's a lot easier, I think, to have it more word of mouth than going out and trying to solicit jobs these days.
I would assume it's been pretty slow since COVID times, right?
Yes and no. I'm still working. Yes, it's slower, but I'm still working, luckily. And since it's slower for scripted, reality shows are picking back up a little bit more because I think they're easier to shoot during COVID. You can kind of put them in a house together, or whatever it might be. So yeah, I actually have been doing a little bit more reality shows since COVID, waiting for film to restart.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'm working on my podcast, of course, as well.
That's great. How long have you been doing it?
Casting?
Mm-hmm.
About 10, a little over 10 years probably now.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you are established.
Yeah.
I mean,
I hope so.
you're a bona fide casting director.
I hope so.
What would you say is some of the biggest pressures that you have? Is it like making sure you don't choose the wrong actor, or would you say dealing with actors, or what are the pressures of your job?
Well, as far as choosing the actors, I'm more of like a middleman, I guess, because I don't make the final decisions. Although I do, I bring them the talent that I think that they would want to see, and then we discuss and make decisions kind of together depending on the project. The most pressure, gosh, I think sometimes the most pressure can just be, getting to the right talent for the right rate. Like if I'm working on a film and it's a lower budget film, and they want somebody that maybe they can't get for the rate that they have. Right. I have to step in and say, hey, that's probably not going to happen. But there's other talent that we can get that is just as good, just a little bit different. Or, it's a lot of managing expectations for the talent versus the directors, the producers.
Yeah, I'd love to be in on those conversations. Like they're asking for a Tom Cruise and you can say, well, this guy's just as good.
Right.
I mean, obviously those won't be public, but that would be pretty interesting. And we're not talking, of course, about Tom Cruise. I just threw that out there. So do you ever feel that actors look at you as the enemy?
No, I don't think so.
I
think they like me.
Oh, great. I just thought, I don't know the business again, and I was just thought that sometimes it's like they have to get past you to get the job, or, maybe there's a lot of disgruntled actors that are like, oh, these casting directors, they just never,
I've heard from a lot of actors that I'm more friendly than other casting directors. I love my job. I wake up so happy every day. So there's no reason, like, I know that, you hear these Hollywood stories about like this casting director is so mean in the room or whatever. Like that seems ridiculous to me. Like I'd rather just be nice to I want everybody to get the job. Like right. I want everybody to walk in and be like, oh, I scored this. Like I got this. Like obviously that can't happen. But I think, it'd be fantastic if it could. But yeah, like I'm excited for everybody to walk in and get the job. So yeah, I think everybody likes me.
Oh, that's great. I was just curious. Like I said, I'm curious about your profession. Do you, well, you mentioned earlier that besides look and besides talent, there are many other factors. Can you give us some of the other factors that go through your decision-making process?
Sure. I mean, it's simple as, does the schedule fit? Are they working on something else? You know, does the actor want to work on a horror film when they've normally been doing Disney? There's so many factors that go in. And I work more with agents and managers than actually the actors. So there's a lot of negotiating and talking behind the scenes with the agents and managers. And the agents and managers, it's also up to them. Do they feel that their actor is the right fit for this project, or is it not something that they want to do right now? It's how is the actor on set? A lot of times, if I don't know an actor, I'll call around, I'll ask how they were on their last film or TV show, just to make sure. You don't want somebody that's going to go in and act crazy or be a liability. Are they going to show up? Are they going to get their work done? It's important. There's just a lot that goes in. It's not just their talent, it's how they act, it's how they portray themselves, their brand. There's everything that goes into it.
When you doing an audition, is there some kind of average?
It is. It's really different. A lot of times we'll have a few people in mind for a part, especially for a bigger film. We'll have some people in mind. Sometimes we don't necessarily do auditions. It's more of a meet and greet or just an offer. If it's somebody that's, if we know who they are and how they are, it could be an offer. For actors that we don't know, I try to audition the least amount of actors possible to make the correct decision. So I'm not bringing everybody in, especially these days with self-tapes. Self-tapes are great. I'll do self-tapes for a majority of the process. And then once it's narrowed down and we can't narrow it down between like 2 or 3 people or 1 or 2 people, that's when we'll schedule a meet and greet or an in-person audition.
Okay. And a self-tape, is that like a YouTube video or something, or what is that?
Yeah, we send them the sides, what we need to see. And then kind of how we are right here, they usually have some kind of little setup, and they stick their phone on a tripod, or somebody else is filming them and helping them out. And they just tape it for us. They tape their idea of the part for us and read the lines and everything, and then send it in.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Yeah. For some reason in my mind, I had it like as if you may be sitting there in an audition and like 100 people may roll through, and I'm like, gosh, how do you decide out of 100 people, you narrow it down to 5. So I was curious, what are the things that I think
that's a little more old school. That's kind of how people used to do it before, there was so much technology. But with the technology that we have, it's so much easier to get the self-tapes, because that way exactly, you can, if someone's just not going to be right for the part, you can tell right away on a self-tape.
Right.
Or if they just stand out between a sea of self-tapes, then that they're going in a different pile.
Right. And that leads me to right there. What makes somebody stand out like that? What is that you see?
It can be any number of things. Sometimes it's they did something totally out of the box. Sometimes they read it exactly how we had envisioned it. Sometimes they have a more unique look than, I'd expected, or, they read it pretty well, but, you can tell that they put a lot into it. They dressed up for the part. They're really, it's kind of just like a feeling, are they believable when they're doing these lines? Are they off book? Are they, do they look like the character? Do they look like they know what they're doing? When they're believable, that's a big thing. If I can see it when I'm watching the tape, like, oh yeah, this person could totally play this role. Like, this is kind of how we all envisioned it and talked about it. Then yeah.
Oh, cool. I would assume it would be obvious, like if you have a certain part, like, it's a cowboy role, that guy should be in a cowboy hat and some boots. Dress the part
nice
when they
if they can do
tape.
that. it's nice that they can do that. I
Yeah.
think that it helps. I don't know if everybody has a cowboy hat and boots at home.
Right.
But a lot of actors do kind of dress up for the part. It's not hard to borrow a cowboy hat from your roommate or
Sure.
something or whatever. But yeah, I think a lot of actors do that, and I think it's really great because it does add to it. It shows initiative.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it kind of helps you see them in the part as well.
Yeah, it does.
Do you still work with headshots, or now that's kind of gone away and it's all about the tapes?
I personally don't like headshots. I'm, environmentally friendly.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, everything's online. I can pull it up in a heartbeat. I can pull it up on my phone for somebody, it's everything's online. So I personally don't see a need for headshots. I know a lot of actors still have them. For paper headshots. I mean, obviously you need headshots, but right. I think online is just as good, but it's a personal preference between everybody.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know how technology has changed everything, since with all the tapes. So while I've got you here, can you give all the actors out there some tips about how to do an audition or to stand out in an audition?
Sure. I think a lot of it is your knowledge and your growth. It's important to have a good reel. It's important to have a good agent and manager. And beyond all that, if you're just asking about the audition itself, be confident. As long as you're confident, even if you mess up the lines or whatever and you're on audition, if you're confident and you can pull it off, then that's way more believable than just reading the right words that are on the page. Right. If you can kind of go off book and be like, oh yeah, if you're into it, if you're in that moment as that actor, then you're going to be a lot more believable and you're going to be a lot more confident. And I think that's really the best advice I can give is to be confident, even if you're like not feeling it. I mean, you're an actor, act confident, I think that's super important.
All right. You got any other things? Any other tips?
Any more tips? Yes. I have lots of tips.
We're going to get as much out of you as we can. We got to help these actors out there.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, it is important to get a good agent and manager. It's hard when you're just starting out to do that. Start with a manager. There's a million managers out there. Ask around, pick a good manager and go after it. Be sure to ask your friends, make sure that it's somebody that you want to work with, meet with them. And manager then will help you get an agent as well. That's a good, easy way to do it. Good headshots are key. It's really good. It's important to make sure your headshots actually look like you. No filters, no crazy, things that we do on Instagram. And up to date headshots are really important too. So I know a lot of people go out and spend a ton of money on headshots, but you're going to need new ones in a few months. So there's really not a lot of reason for that. There's some great headshot photographers out there. I mean, you could probably do it on your iPhone if you really needed to. But I think, taking classes is important. Being creative. I know through COVID, a lot of people just started putting their content out there. That's amazing. That's great. That's a wonderful way to get noticed if you're not, a big actor or whatever, and you're starting out. So that's a really good way to get noticed and get some practice in too.
Are you pulling any talent from YouTube, TikTok, Instagram that just, there's a lot of people out there that have tens of millions of followers, and now that they have this audience, is that world trying to pull in those people just to get more eyes on their picture or television show?
I've dealt with that with a couple smaller films with, some really low budget films. It's something that we've tried before. Like, if we grab this Instagram person, are they going to bring in numbers? And it doesn't necessarily work like that. I don't see a problem with it, but I think that it needs to be an amazing actor no matter what it is, because if you just choose an Instagram influencer that can't act, then you just have a bad actor.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's what it is. If you choose a great actor who maybe doesn't have, millions of followers, you're going to have a great project. So I
Right.
think it's more important just to choose, your actors based on their capabilities and, their talent rather than their social media influence.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Let me check some questions here. I have one, or I have more than one. Who is your favorite celebrity that you've worked with?
Oh gosh. Well, I don't know. That's so hard. That's so hard to say. I can tell you some celebrities that I think are really amazing. Um, as people and as actors. Steve Valentine is one of my favorite people. I think he's a great actor. He was on what's that TV show? He was on Crossing Jordan for a long time, and he's super cool. Bella Thorne, I think, is an amazing actress. I love her. Um, Gosh, who else? Marilyn Manson is actually
Oh, wow.
really awesome to work with.
Oh, cool.
He's extremely, extremely talented. Just no doubt on that. Super, super talented. Trying to think of who else I worked with off the top of my
I
head.
hope I
A
didn't put
million
you in a
people.
bad spot, because then you can't, hey, some
I know.
actor's going to say, why didn't you say my name?
Whoever I don't say. There's so many, really, really talented people out there. But yeah, like as far as like some of my favorites, there's a lot.
Everybody's your favorite.
Yes.
All right, let me catch another question here. Do you prefer choosing an actor with no lessons, no experience, but natural, with a lot of natural talent, or do you prefer having someone with a lot of experience and the talent, obviously?
It really depends on the role. There's a lot that goes in to choosing an actor, and it also depends on what, if it's a film and we, need to make sure that we hit a certain amount of numbers here and there, then we would need someone with more experience. But that doesn't mean every role. For me, I like actors to be experienced, but it doesn't mean they have to be like a well-known name, but be on set. No matter if you're, learning, whatever, be on set. But also experience is, getting training, going to classes, working with other actors to create something cool. So yeah, like experience can come in all different forms. I think if you've just like never really been on set, you don't have an agent or manager, like there's a lot that goes into being an actor. It's not easy. It's extremely, extremely difficult to be an actor. I don't know how they do it. I think it's like the coolest thing ever. I could never do it. There's so much talent. There's so much hard work. You can have all the talent in the world, but without the hard work, you're never gonna. It's not gonna pay off at all. I mean, the hard work is people work for years and years struggling to get to where they're at.
Yeah, and
so it's a lot of the hard work.
And it's amazing to think about. I mean, there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of actors, but only like, I would assume, the 1% get to even be in films, not to say that they're the star of the film, but just, whatever, just to have a smaller part. It's just, I would assume it's so competitive. Is that true?
It's extremely competitive. And it's so hard. I mean, you get turned down over and over and over. You go to 25 auditions and they all say no, but that 26th one, maybe they'll say yes. Maybe that's your part. They're never ending. These actors that I know are completely relentless, and it's really cool. Like, it's cool to see. It's cool to talk to them. I love actors. I just think they're the coolest people. Like, how, like, to just, this is what I want to do, and then they work until they get it. Like, that's a real actor.
That's great. It's great that they don't give up.
Yeah, that's the biggest part. If you never give up, eventually you're going to get there, right? You never know what's going to happen. And there's different realms of making it. If you are a working actor, if you can pay your bills through acting, you made it. Like, that's huge, because most can't. Everyone's not going to be Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise or whoever. Like, that's not going to happen. Not everyone's going to be a household name.
Right.
But if you don't give up, who knows? But I mean, I think you've made it if you can make a living off of acting it, like, that's huge. That's really big. Yeah, and sometimes people get somewhere kind of randomly, that's what happens, you never know. It's
It's just
life.
the luck of life.
It is, yeah.
So we got some tips out of you. Let's do it the opposite way. What are things that
Uh-uh.
you should not do on an audition?
Oh my god, so many things.
Oh, there. See, then we got
I'm
some
just
good
kidding.
stuff now.
Oh, there. Let's see. What should you not do? Don't act all weird. Don't have a weird vibe. Be normal. Don't say anything weird.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you're in the room. I mean, there's been times when an actor will come in and they'll say something completely inappropriate to me. I'm like, wait, what? Like,
Mm.
you can't say that to the casting director. No
Wow.
matter what you think. Be nice to everybody. Um, and then beyond that, you want to be somebody that people want to work with. You
Mm-hmm.
don't like being on set, being on a film is a family.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, you're on that film day in and day out. You get so close to these people. So you don't want to be the person that nobody wants to hang out with. Like if everyone's like, "Oh, that person's so cool," then yeah, like that's going to help you get more roles. You're going to be on more sets because
Mm-hmm.
people want to work with you. The producers want to work with you. The crew wants to work with you. The other talent wants to work with you. So it's important to actually be yourself and be cool and be nice to everybody, not just the top people or whatever. Be nice to the PAs, be nice to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to get you a lot further in the long run.
All right. As I was researching for our topic tonight, some of the things I saw was like, don't go in there and shake their hands because they don't want to shake, everybody's hands. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, I mean, in these times, yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, normally I think how I run a room, I like to be in charge. When I'm running a casting session, I like to be in charge. I tell them exactly what I need. I come in, stand here, do this, do that. So
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of time for them to mess up. Like, I don't want anyone to mess up. I don't want
Right.
anyone to, say weird things or do weird things. So
Mm-hmm.
I try to keep it a tight ship when I'm in there, but I also try to, keep it light and, not mess them up or,
Right.
say or do anything that would, take them out of the moment.
Right. I don't obviously know, but if we kind of go through a mock one, someone first comes in and they've kind of got to stand there on a line and they like say their name and their height and weight or something like that. Is that how it kind of starts?
Yeah, I mean, everything's a little bit different, but usually they come in, we say hi, they stand where, in front where we need them to stand.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, their name, sometimes they bring in a headshot. I don't ask for those anymore because I have it all online. So there's
Right.
no reason for that. We talk about their representation, who their agent manager is. It's
Mm-hmm.
usually somebody that I know. So that's great. We discuss that for a second and then ask them if they need a moment or if they're ready and turn the cameras on and have them, read their sides and see what happens. Sometimes I need it done a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
I'll ask them to change it up, do it differently, or I'll see if they have another way that they wanted to do it. If they don't hit it completely right the first time, or even if they do hit it great, maybe they've got a better idea than I had in mind. So
Mm-hmm.
if they have another way to do it or read it, then let's try that. That's about it. I thank them. I make sure, that I have all their info that I need, their agent manager info, and tell them that, hopefully we'll be in touch.
Right.
That's about it. It's a quick process.
That's quick. Do they already have the lines before they get there so they can have them memorized? You've already emailed that to them?
Yeah, usually we'll send the sides to their agent or manager ahead of time so that they can be prepared. Sometimes, I've been in the room sometimes where I'll pull out a different set of sides for maybe a different character because once they're in there, maybe once I see them in person, I'm like, oh, actually, like this character would be better. Can you just read this really quick? So sometimes we'll change it up on them or have them read another scene from something. But yeah.
How long are the scenes that they usually read?
It depends. Sometimes a couple pages. I mean, but a couple pages on a script is not that much,
Right.
It's and you're in a conversation with somebody usually. I don't like to do monologues as much.
Right.
But it's a conversation that you're having going on. So even if you don't remember the exact words, if you can be present in the moment, then you're going to be able to basically get the lines. And that's usually pretty good enough. But yeah, a couple pages.
Okay, that's very interesting. All right, so let's segue into this. You do all this casting, directing, and how do you find time for your podcast?
My podcast kind of started randomly. I knew that I wanted to do one. I love true crime. I think that true crime is really interesting. So my business partner, we have a production company. As we start to expand what we're doing, my business partner is a producer, and so I was like, hey, like, let's start with a podcast. Like, let's try this out because I really want to do it. And I called him and I was like, everyone's doing all the cool murder podcasts. Like, I'm not really sure what to do. And he was like, well, let's try stalking. No one's doing that. And I was like, well, I don't even know anything about stalking, which then I was like, oh, I don't know anything about stalking. That means probably other people don't either. And it's crazy because so many people are stalked and they don't know what to do when they're stalked. Like, you can't really, it's not a 911 call because no one's stabbing you until they are, or whatever it might be.
Right.
But there are resources out there, which, we've learned, and we've done, I think, 35 weeks now. We put out an episode a week. We talk to survivors of stalkers. We hear their story. We just kind of let them tell it in their words. We don't say much about it because it's not our story. But we learn a lot. And then we do talk a lot about what you can do if you're in that kind of situation.
Through all these podcasts you have, do you find that most of the people who are stalked already know the people, or are they someone that they've never met?
There are a lot of people that, dated somebody or went on a couple dates with somebody or even was married to somebody that then stalked them. Although, sometimes it's a random stranger. It could be somebody that you've never seen before. It could be somebody you randomly met at a grocery store that starts stalking you. It could be somebody that you might have met and you don't really remember them, but they're stalking you. I mean, it can literally be anybody.
Wow. Has any of your guests, ever been people that have been physically harmed?
Yeah. I mean, that happens. They say that stalking is like slow murder because a lot of times that is what the end result is going to be. Fortunately, a lot of people that we talk to have gotten out of those situations. But yeah, I mean, sometimes people have been seriously injured by their stalker, or, I talked to Tara Newell, who, the TV show Dirty John was about. She was the daughter. She stabbed and killed her stalker, because he was trying to kill her. Right. So each story is so different. And there's so much that goes into what happens to them, but not just the physical, the mental anguish of being stalked is horrific. It's like, I mean, the PTSD from it, living in fear every day of your life. It's crazy.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I knew somebody that was stalked before, and I believe it was an ex-boyfriend. And sometimes I felt kind of like, I mean, it sounds terrible. And sometimes, especially with someone with an ex, it's like, are you like inviting this person in, or what's going on? It seemed really kind of strange for me, and I was just
Well, I mean, and I think a lot of people do wonder that, like why are they still hanging around? But it's a mental issue with the stalker that they can't let go, or they feel the need that they have to control this person. So yeah, it's usually has nothing to do with the victim at all. Right. Even if it was somebody that they dated or even married, you should be able to tell somebody that you don't want their attention anymore and they should leave you alone.
Right. Obviously, everybody you're going to speak with is a victim, right? I wonder if conversely, any of these victims actually like the attention, kind of draw in the stalker. Do you have
not that we've come across?
Yeah,
none.
I would assume wouldn't be your guess.
No.
And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's true or not myself. I was just kind of curious about it. So you've done 35 so far, right? How
Yeah.
often do you do your podcast? Is it weekly
Once
or
a week.
once a
Once a
week?
week.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. So it's been almost a year now.
Yeah. We're excited to get like a whole year's worth, get to 52.
That's great. That's great. I did a little stalking of you myself. I went and checked out
Uh-oh.
your Instagram. And so can you tell us what's going on there?
I just live my life. I put
Mm-hmm.
it on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm really a happy person.
Mm-hmm.
I live a great life. Like I'm really happy. I think I said that twice. I hang out with my friends a lot. I go out when I can. I go to
Mm-hmm.
the beach all the time. I mean, I think that, my whole thing is if I'm not doing what I want to do, then I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I've wasted time before, like being in bad relationships or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, where, it's very controlling or manipulative or, things like that. And, one day I just woke up and I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm only going to be happy. And I think happiness is a big decision that you can make. And it's actually quite simple. So that's what I did. And I think that my Instagram reflects that.
Yeah, I mean, you're actually a beautiful woman, and you have a lot of fantastic pictures on Instagram. And
Thank you.
I was like, wow, are you doing modeling too?
No.
No,
No.
you're just very photogenic. And it looks like you also put, I think, maybe links to your podcast on your Instagram as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. If somebody wants to find out about it, how do they find your podcast?
You can find my podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's called Strictly Stalking.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Apple, Spotify, Castbox, everything. You can go to my Instagram is FeatherGirl77, and the links are all in the bio. There's a YouTube for our podcast, everything.
Oh, great.
And our podcast Instagram is Strictly Stalking Pod. Mm-hmm. So you can find everything there too.
Do you have a website for it as well?
For the podcast? Mm-hmm. No, not yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but we are on YouTube, so it's just YouTube/Strictly Stalking.
Yeah. I don't even know if it would really be necessary to have a website for a podcast anyways, unless you want to put your show notes or something.
We're on Patreon now. Mm-hmm. And what we've decided to do with our Patreon is post the information from each of our episodes. So like if we have access to the victim's restraining order, obviously no sensitive information, but we're going to start posting like the restraining orders, photos, news clippings, news articles, all those kinds of things, because I think that's really important to really get eyes on that so people can see what these survivors have gone through, like how many restraining orders they had to get in order to put their stalker in prison, or maybe their stalker's not in prison, or photos of things that their stalkers sent to them, or text messages that they received from their stalkers. So we're going to start putting all that on our Patreon. So I guess Patreon's kind of like a website. Have you come across in many of your podcasts that you've actually had someone currently being stalked and you've helped stop that? Well, we're not private investigators. We're not law enforcement, but I think that we are giving a lot of resources. We're helping with a lot of resources. A lot of people come to us like, hey, what should I do about this? And we'll give them a list of resources that can help, because we're not there yet. Although, we'd love to change some of the laws to make it easier for people. And I think that's really where we're going to do our most work, is in hopefully changing the laws and getting more easier justice for the victims of stalking. Yeah, I was just thinking kind of like that would be amazing if you had someone come on and I'm getting stalked by this guy or whatever, and he won't leave me alone, and just somehow being on the podcast and you guys publicly talking about this guy is kind of publicly shaming the person, that maybe he'll finally wise up and move on. Well, stalkers don't really see it like that, which is why sometimes our guests remain anonymous because it's for their safety. A stalker is going to see a guest coming on and talking about them as if they just won the lottery. That means the person of their obsession has acknowledged them publicly, is talking about them. I mean, it can be very, very dangerous to come on and talk about their stalker in that kind of way. So we never mentioned the stalker by name for any of the episodes except for like a couple of the super famous ones where maybe the stalker is dead or something like that. Or it's a very well known thing in the news. But we don't want to give any validation to the stalker because that's what they're looking for. So yeah, I don't think a stalker would stop if we tried to name them or like publicly shame them, because that's what they want. It's not public shaming to them.
It's really interesting to find out. What percentage of the people that you have are men stalked by women?
It happens more than you think. We don't get a lot of men coming forward that want to talk about it. We had a great episode. This guy, Keith, he's, kind of a famous or DJ. Famous, I don't think it's word. He's like a famous DJ. He plays in the club scenes, and he had a female stalker. I mean, what he had to go through was terrible, especially because he is a man. People were like, oh, what'd you do to her? Like, why is she stalking you? But he didn't do anything. He didn't even really know her. She just was so obsessed with him. I mean, at one point she sent him a chainsaw in the mail. Like, things got crazy, and he really had to work hard to get help for that, because nobody, I think cops are great. I just think that they're not trained in stalking. They're trained to show up when a crime has been committed. They clean up the crime scene. Not clean up. Sound either. They come in and they go over the crime scene.
Right.
If you don't have a crime scene and you only have a victim and you don't maybe even know who the perpetrator is, what are the cops going to do? So it makes sense that they don't know what to do at this point. And I know, there's a lot more training happening now with the cops, because it's a little bit of a different mindset, because it's just not what they're trained to do. They're trained to come in after the crime has been committed, after someone's been stabbed or shot or run over or whatever it is, not somebody threatening to do it.
Right. We used to say, like, it seems like a lot of times they're ended up training to come in and write a report after everything's done,
Yeah.
Let me catch another question here. What is the best way, if you know, to legally defend yourself from a stalker? In Texas here, we're a gun state, so it's people.
Yeah, it really depends on where you're at.
Yeah.
It depends on where you're at. But I will tell you a story again about the guy that was stalked by the girl. The problem he had was she could have come up to him in a public street and tried to attack him. But what's it going to look like for people around if he tries to defend himself?
Right.
People are going to be like, why are you hurting that girl? Whatever. So it's very one-sided. So what his PI or whoever he had that he was working with, they told him to try and, carry mace. And that's the best way to do it, mace, and then run, because if you're caught even if you're just caught macing some girl in the street as a guy, or really as anybody, people are going to jump in and be like, what's going on? And it's not really how you want people to jump in, because then you could look like the perpetrator rather than just defending yourself. So, look and see what your state says. Like you said, Texas, you get a gun, and, it's different if someone's actually on your property versus if it's in public, things like that.
What about for a female? If the female's being stalked?
I mean, I think it's a great idea to always, take self-defense, be prepared with whatever you're comfortable with. I have friends that have guns, and that's great. And they're well trained. They will shoot someone if that happens, if they need to. I don't have a gun, so I don't think I can shoot anyone. But it's good the best defense is kind of offense too. Be prepared, be aware. Make sure if you're scared, have cameras on your house. I have security cameras everywhere. I have 2 giant dogs. A little bit like a fortress because of what I do. But yeah, like I think that, self-defense is a great thing. Just learn and be prepared and be aware.
Have you yourself been stalked? And if not, do you just have all this preparation after hearing all these women's stories that you kind of got freaked out and said, man, I need to get some protection?
I have not been stalked. I've always tried to, be aware and be able to defend myself. As far as like keeping my house like a fortress, a little bit it's to do with the podcast, and a little bit just because I've dated a lot of idiots. you know. But yeah, that's about it.
No, that's okay. I think I got another one here. Do you think that the stalkers have a certain percentage of mental disorder? I mean, I think you kind of already said that, but I would assume just by definition, if you're a stalker, you have a mental disorder.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stalkers have schizophrenia. That's a big thing. Even just having that, severe obsession, it's a problem. So yeah, I mean, it's a different forms of mental disorders can bring different things out. But there are a lot of schizophrenics that stalk.
What is the best advice you would give to someone thinking about getting into the commercial voiceover business? And to follow up with that, is an agent necessary?
Well, I don't work a lot with voiceover, but an agent and a manager and agent are always good to have. I would say start with a manager because they'll help you get an agent. I know there's companies out there that work with voiceover, like connecting voiceover with commercials or whatever they need. What was the other part of the question?
He said, is an agent necessary? And I'm kind of like wondering, you mentioned to have a manager and an agent. One thing that kind of sucks is you have two guys with their hand in the pile, right? But no,
not really, because without a manager or agent, like I don't work necessarily with actors. I work with managers and agents.
Right.
So an actor can be like, "Oh, can I be on this or that?" Well, yeah, sure. Just have your agent send me your stuff. Like it's really difficult to do that without them. So they work hard. Managers and agents work really hard for their talent. I mean, without a manager and agent, they're the ones getting you their job. So yeah, they do take a percentage, but it's 100% worth it.
Okay. When you're saying manager agent, are you saying manager / agent, or are you saying a manager?
No, manager. There's managers and then there's agents.
There's not one that can be both.
Right.
Okay.
They're two different jobs. I would say, go with a manager first, because a manager is like more one-on-one. Right. They're gonna sit down and talk to you, and they're going to help you out and, tell you what you should be doing. They're going to, these classes are better for you. They're going to more give you advice, and they will help you they'll help you along the way with, getting the right roles and things. But an agent then comes and really works more on the job side of things. They're not your day-to-day. They're out there working day-to-day for you, but it's more like the long haul with the agent. Well, they're both for the long haul, but the manager's like your day to day, and they'll help you with all that kind of stuff. So I think having a manager is super important.
Okay. If you are new to Hollywood, let's just say, hey, I'm from wherever. I'm from Texas, and I just got my theater degree, and I'm gonna go out to LA and try to make it. Do you just like Google agents and managers, or you probably want to find a manager first?
I think your first thing is to get a job. And then you're going to want to take classes, and you're never going to really want to stop taking classes. But once you go and you start taking these classes, there's so many classes, so many. Then you're going to meet other actors. You're going to meet, your teachers and coaches, and they're going to be the best people to give you that advice, to tell you like what managers are looking for somebody, or because the best way to get a manager is through referral. So, if your friend that you just met and they're like, oh, my manager totally needs somebody that looks like you, or whatever it might be. Right. My manager's looking for new people to take on. Then that's going to get you in the door. Cold calling, showing up, emailing, maybe 1 in a million, but it's harder. It's much harder.
Okay, that's interesting. Do you find that like agents and managers work together? Like if you hook up with this manager, then he usually has an agent, and he'll say, go see Steve over here. He's the agent I like to work with.
Yeah, 99% of the time. That's a lot of times if you start with a manager, they'll help you get to your agent.
Oh, okay, that's great.
They'll hook you up with, like, if your goal is to be at CAA,
Mhm.
I guarantee your manager knows someone at CAA, and when they think that you're ready to go be over there or whatever company might be, then they'll set that meeting up for you.
Okay. Let me catch another question here. What do you think are the acting classes that are the biggest waste of time?
I don't think any of them are a waste of time. I think that you should be able to learn something in whatever you do. If you're not learning something, then it's a waste of time. If you're unhappy doing it, then it's a waste of time.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's just, even if it's just practice, it's
Mhm.
it's a good class. It's not a waste of time.
Mhm. Yeah, that sounds sensible.
Yeah.
All right, here's another question. What do you think about voiceover platforms like voice123.com? Do you know anything about that website?
I don't know what that is.
Okay, you don't know what that is. Okay, let's see what else. How would someone aspiring to up their game in voiceover world contact a manager, especially if they don't reside in the market? Let's say if someone's like a radio DJ in Boston, and he wants to do voiceover work, would he just Google for somebody in LA or New
I
York?
mean, well, you're gonna want for voiceover, you're gonna want a voiceover manager from a
Mhm.
voiceover company, because voiceovers and acting, they can intertwine, but
Mhm.
if you're looking just to do voiceover work, um, then you're gonna want to go through one of the voiceover companies. And I would say make a demo reel and send it to them.
Mhm.
Keep trying. Don't give up.
Mhm. When you're saying, and I guess you can just Google these voiceover companies.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah. And let me kind of clarify, even for me, and maybe some of the listeners may have the same kind of thought process I have, is when we say voiceover, are we just saying like voiceover like in an animated cartoon, or what are the different things that voiceover actors are doing?
There's a lot. It could be commercials, it could be, like you said, animation. Um, there's ADR, like with film, it's I
What's
forget what it
ADR?
stands for.
Oh.
I forget what it
Oh.
stands for, but it's basically in film, like if you hear people in the background talking, they do a lot of that in post, where they have people talking
Mhm.
through the microphone, or fixing the sound a little bit. Sometimes the sound needs to be fixed. There's a lot of reasons for it.
Oh, okay. It's kind of more on the technical aspect then.
Kinda.
Kind of. Oh, that's interesting. I guess, do you ever do any, besides film, like radio voiceover stuff, or is it all basically just
I don't
film?
really work with voiceover. I just, film and TV, and sometimes reality,
Mhm.
web series, music videos, commercials,
Mhm.
like more of the acting instead of voiceover.
Okay. Do you actually, when you're casting, do you cast the actors that just have like one line or have no lines? But let's say if there's a gang of guys and they need like one extra dude in the gang, do you cast for that
um,
as well, or how does that go down?
I've done extra casting, more so when I first started working. I don't really do extra casting more. If I'm hired to cast the film, I'm mostly doing the main roles. The bigger, not sometimes some of the day player roles, but never like the non-speaking extra roles.
Okay, so like if you're working on a film, they may hire you for the main actors and they'll hire
Yeah,
another.
they'll usually hire me for all the principals,
Mhm.
which are kind of like the main actors that you would see. And then once in a while, we'll do a couple of the day players, depending on how co-stars, whatever it is. But not like the really small roles usually.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because it's like what comes to my mind is, let's say if you're watching like Star Trek or something, and there's always some dudes has a job somewhere on the ship and he just walks by in the scene. It's probably really, they could probably just get the lighting guy, hey, put on the uniform and just walk by or something. Or people
Well,
actually
usually
casted for
they'll
something
usually they'll
small.
hire they'll use an extra company that sends in a group of people that they need 15 people that look like this or whatever, and they'll just
Mhm.
send them in, and those are like the background, the extras.
Oh, okay, it's cool. Can you make a living off being an extra?
Yeah, people do it. Especially if you're SAG, if you're union, I think it probably pays pretty decent if you're working all the time, if you're cool on set. then I don't see why you couldn't make a living doing that if that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not, I'm sure that's not their goal, but
you never know.
Yeah, you never know. All right, let me catch some more questions here. What do you think about reality shows? You like them or not like them?
I love watching reality shows. I started out, I've cast a ton of reality shows, tons and tons and tons. It was really fun for a lot. It is really fun. It's a fun thing to do. It's more like a treasure hunt. You have to find this little needle in the haystack. Like, oh, I need this type of person that does this, that wants to do this, that knows this. There's so much that goes into it. It's actually, reality show casting is very difficult. It's a lot of work, but it's fun. I still, once in a while, I work always pretty much for the same company. I work for Meadow Flowers Media. They do like Naked and Afraid. They do some of the really, really fun shows. Show. So nowadays, like I said, I don't really do reality shows anymore. But once in a while, if that company calls, I'll work with them. They're just such great people to work with. So yeah. Reality shows are cool.
Do you actually cast like families, like the Duck Dynasty family, or Kardashians, or Honey Boo Boo, or something like that? Or is that?
Yeah, I mean, those are more docuseries. When it's like the same people like that. And I've worked on lots of docuseries before as well. So it just depends on what the company is looking for, what the network is looking for. And I just try and find it.
All right. I don't know. You probably won't answer this, but who is your who is a famous client that was a pain to work with?
I definitely won't answer that.
I didn't think you would.
No.
Yeah, I didn't think that was going to go down. All right. So before we wrap it up here, can you give any message to the audience? Either if you want to give a nice message about stalking, or a nice message about how to be an actor, or both. But
a nice message about stalking.
I mean, how to protect anything you want to give a message to our audience before you go.
Yeah, I think it's just really important to follow your dreams. Don't give up. And I think that really happiness is a choice, and waking up happy every day is number one. And if you can do that, then you've already made it. And if you keep working towards your goals, then it's just going to get better and better.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. All right, Jaimie. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time this evening. I really appreciate it. I wish you massive success with your podcast.
Thank you so
with
much.
Your casting. I mean, I hope you become the biggest casting director in LA.
Me too.
Yes. All right, well, have a great evening.
You too. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.